Dr. G,
How are you?
what's going on?
I'm feeling great.
You are?
Yeah. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
You didn't have to travel that far. You came from Topanga.
hmm
You moved up there recently, right?
Yeah, I moved up there recently. I was living in the middle of Venice, and I was just talking to Max about this. Other Max, we're inundated with so much, and me being very sensitive, I was waking up every night. Sounds, possibly EMFs, and I'll tell you why. Because this one time, we had a power outage, and it was like a 6-hour power outage, and it was in the middle of the night, and I felt so great. Like I had the deepest sleep, and I was like, well, that's interesting.
Wow.
But since moving to Topanga, I'm able to regulate my circadian rhythm much more. I'm grounding every single day. My front yard is dirt, so it's really a blessing to be able to do that. My sleep has become better. I feel healthier mentally, physically, emotionally. It's amazing.
Dude, that is amazing. You talk a lot about the 4 pillars of health. I've heard you reference. I've heard you on a bunch of different podcasts. Tell me about those. What are the 4 pillars?
Man, I've expanded it to a lot more.
Whoa.
Because there's more. But when it comes to pillars of health, I think we need to give people rules of thumb that are cheap and that are accessible versus all these amazing biohacking devices that we have. But you know from Instagram, people are like, I can't really afford that, and that's that we understand that. So I think giving people reemphasizing the importance of what these cheap interventions can do is massive, and a responsibility that I think all of us who are teaching are there or can do. So sleep. I mean, we were just talking about it. Sleep, number one.
So important.
Massive. We know what it's like. I know you talked about it with brain health, right? BDNF. And basically it's like, I call it spring cleaning, but overnight in all of our tissues, not just our brain, but reducing inflammatory markers. Melatonin is one of the most important hormones that we need to have working well. And, when you came on my show, you were talking about the disruption of what light does. And light is one of the pillars, light exposure. But melatonin itself is so healing to the body, not only regulating our immune system, helping us sleep, but it's rejuvenating too. It's anti-cancer, right? So you got to make sure your melatonin is high, especially at the most important time of day, which is at night, so avoiding that blue light.
How amazing is it that it's basically like a biochemical fountain of youth that our own bodies create for free.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, for free. And it was interesting when you came to the show, we were talking about light and how it affects melatonin and lux, right? The intensity, the luminous intensity of light. Well, basically, you only need about 50 lux to start disrupting your melatonin. And what's 50 lux? It's pretty much the light in your kitchen or in your living room. So this is why I'm always reemphasizing you either have to get blue blockers or learn how to start dimming your lights, making your lights red or amber, because that is going to go such a long way. You'll decrease melatonin by like 22% for every hour you're exposed to that artificial light.
22%.
22%.
Wow.
On average, which is wild because we have, let's say, after sundown. So let's say 3 hours, you more than half your melatonin is not only reduced, but it's also not being released in a timely fashion. You're not getting enough, and the bus isn't even coming, or it's coming late. So it's pretty incredible what melatonin does and how sensitive it is to the lifestyle that we have after sunset. Because we all love TV and turning on our phones and Netflix, and just protect your eyes. That's what I tell people.
I'm certainly guilty of it. I spend so many nights in front of, my brothers have like these massive TVs, and there is like a social bonding element that I appreciate to it. We're all sitting around the tube, like watching tube. That's such an old fashioned term, but yeah, but you're totally right. Like light, when you're exposed to it later on in the day, insofar as it has this ability to reduce melatonin, as you so eloquently explained, it's almost like a toxin.
Yeah. It's that. This is why sleep is one of the most important pillars I talk about from the get-go, because of what it does overall to our health, reduction in chronic disease, right? It's reducing inflammatory cytokines. So if you wake up, I mean, we've done no sleep nights. I do it sometimes now still. And the reason you feel that brain fog is because you didn't properly integrate or detox that part of the body correctly. That's what I said, spring cleaning overnight. And it's pretty wild to know that if we get restorative sleep, making sure we're getting to bed in a timely fashion, sleep hygiene, which I spoke about on my last show in depth about what sleep hygiene is and how to do it. But having those practices can really change our health. So you can't come to my office. I can't give you the best supplements, but your sleep is shitty. You see, like these are what pillars are to me, is making those interventions, making them easy, and then starting with like protocols or all those fancy devices. So sleep is number one.
Love that.
Stress.
Big one.
Easy, man. This is stuff we know, where there's reduction in our chronic stress will reduce our lifespan by 2.8 years.
Yikes.
Telomeres, which are basically our biological health markers, by about like 9 to 10 years. So it's going to age us. You want to, the number one anti-aging intervention is controlling your stress. And we as Americans do the opposite. I was just in New York maybe a month ago, and I was reminded how on the go we New Yorkers used to be. And it's pretty wild because we sacrifice our sleep and those stress reducing techniques to keep going and going, right? Finishing work or doing more work or executing. And I think that we've got it a little bit wrong, and maybe European countries have it a little more right about creating that balance. But man, stress is the culprit behind so many chronic diseases we know. Cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, strokes, diabetes. If not being part of the major cause, is a huge ingredient in that bucket, which is pushing it. So, I mean, this is obvious stuff, but I want people to understand the importance of it.
Well, it's not just obvious. Like you're an expert. You were telling me before we started rolling, right, that you're still feeling the repercussions of the stress that you had last year, right? I mean, well, what's that about?
Yeah, so I was, like I was grinding last year hard, like, creating the podcast, but also I was working in an office, so I had many patients and other projects. I had my hands on a lot. And I also wouldn't say no to anything. So I was like, they're like, hey, do you want to be on this podcast? I was like, sure, let's do it. And I created this impulse to do everything in a week, which was insane because, I could push it to 2 or 3 weeks later. But what that caused was me being in a place where I was like, I'm just worn out. My adrenals were done. My brain was done. And I wanted to go, but my brain said no. And it's pretty wild when your brain turns off. It's like default mode on a computer. Like all you can access is like paint, but you want to do some more. And that's how it felt. So I dedicated this year to my physical health much more. And it was wild because last year that incited psoriasis. And I was like, what the hell? I never had this. But that stress, right? The inflammatory state pushed that. Knock on wood, it doesn't go any further. But I've been healing from that right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And moving was a big part of your, getting rid of that, stepping into a less stressed state.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, the intuition was to be in nature. And I had to listen to it, even though I wanted to be like right in the middle of Venice again, right, where all the action is. But I had to listen to it. And it has been since one of the most healing decisions, right? The solitude, the peace, the sleep rhythm, the grounding, which is another pillar of health, has been incredible.
Yeah, I love that. What are some other ways to de-stress? I mean, you talked about meditation. Do you have like a daily meditation practice?
Yeah. So what I tell people, and I'll talk about the rituals. Rituals is one of the top pillars that I talk about. Rituals being like setting aside time for yourself, and that being so important because setting aside time for yourself will create a place where you are in a mindset, whether it be in the morning or at night. I do morning at night, and in that mindset, it creates more peaceful self-awareness. The self-awareness is important because then you have to connect to your body. And by connecting to your body, well, damn, this person who cut me off created much more of a stress response than I want, right? Like my chest is tight, my muscles are tense, and I'm kind of pissed off. Whereas if you create that awareness in the body, you can tackle it differently, right? So creating a meditative practice is something that I've been doing since 2007. Like meditation has been my saving grace for my mental health. And we know, like, there's studies on meditation where there's a synchronization of both hemispheres in the brain, which is wild. They'll have folks who meditate throughout life have increased gray matter, better mental health, but less brain inflammation. So there's physical effects, not just mental, emotional, but meditation, yoga, journaling, breath work, going on walks, grounding, drawing, creative, anything that puts you in a hyper-present moment is the answer to de-stressing. I don't care if you don't have time to meditate, but you're washing the dishes, become hyper-present of washing the dishes, and that creates the meditative mindful state, which is in turn connecting you to your body, reducing stress hormone, creating a better relationship between your brain and your adrenals. This is a daily practice we can always do, even if we're busy.
Wow. How do we set that intention for the day? Like, walk me through your morning ritual.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This is, I love talking about this stuff because it's so empowering because it can change people's lives, right? Like, I'll wake up, first of all, no phone. Like, my phone is off for two to 3 hours before anything. So I wake up, it's still on airplane mode. And like, for example, today, woke up, went straight into meditation. I was still in bed. Because I find that if I get up, move around, do a few things, then it's harder for me to get into a meditative state. I'm still like kind of groggy. So I'll go into meditation. And for me, you're in a meditative state when you come out and you're like, whoa, like that was not here. Like, whoa, I was somewhere else. And that's my rule of thumb. And meditation can be difficult for some folks. But I always say just focus on one thing. And you could be your breathing, right? And that's what I do. I always focus on my breathing. There's something called the cortisol awakening response. You want to boost up your cortisol within 20 to 30 minutes of waking up. So you need that light exposure, right? So I open the door, I step outside barefoot. I'm still in my underwear. I make sure the sun hits my eyes, hits my body. I'm out there for like 10, 15 minutes. Then I do the routine of like oil pulling, brushing my teeth. I'll take some supplements that I do on the empty stomach, but then I go into journaling, then I go into affirmations, then I go into gratitude, and then I do a little breath work, and then set my intention for the day. I think it's important to have the self-awareness of where you're at in your life, and that's my check-in time. I go, well, what kind of man am I, right? Like, what am I creating as a man? What am I bringing to the world? And what do I want to create? So there's the visualization, affirmations, and being grateful for what you have. Shit, man, if you take 2 hours in your morning, 1 hour in your morning to do that, at least 1 hour, that'll change your life because your mental, emotional, spiritual state is already in alignment. And as a result, the domino that falls is the physical. Your physical health gets better when you're in tune more to your mental, emotional. That's the bottom part of the glacier that we don't see. We just see the physical. So the rituals are an incredible pillar of health that I think that everyone can afford to do. Even if you're a single mom, find the time. Go to the shower, 10-minute shower, do some rituals, affirmations, gratitude, speaking out loud. Then on the drive, do some more. And then when you have time, just journal a little bit. I only do 1 page. It's 8 minutes of journaling. And then the next morning I read over the journal. So easy interventions, but that's what I do.
I just had what I think could be $1 billion idea, and we can split we'll produce it together. We'll come to market. We'll split the profits. So like some kind of like sign that you can hang in your shower that just says like gratitude, that just like reminds you to like take a moment, because I feel like sometimes you need to be reminded.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yeah. So having those reminders. So when I lived in Philly for my residency, I would have Post-its everywhere. Right. Wow. So I knew that when I was getting groggy to the bathroom, brushing my teeth, I would need to do a few things, right? Like, and gratitude is very easy. You can just speak 10 things out loud. You can write 10 things before bed if you can do it in the morning. But all it does is bring your awareness to now, right? Like what's here. And that opens a space for more, to direct more, to create more. It's incredible. But reminders, even if you need to do Post-its, that worked for me.
Brilliant.
I just got into the flow. But if you're starting, do the Post-its, or take Max's $1 billion idea and
just take it and run with it. Yeah,
right, and run with it.
I'm not into patents, so
just go with the flow. Free for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned oil pulling.
Yeah,
I've never talked about this, on the podcast, but I would love to get like what. Obviously, you do it. You're getting something out of it. Like, what does it do for you?
So oil pulling, there's some data on either sesame oil or coconut oil, reducing strep mutans. That is the species of bacteria that is believed to be causative behind dental caries, the cavities that we get. And I went to dental school, so this is where I first learned about it.
Wow.
But it's an ancient.
I didn't know that about you. That's amazing.
Yeah, I did it. I didn't finish. I left and I went to naturopathic. But it's ancient Ayurvedic practice. So it's interesting because, and I know you'll appreciate this, there's so many ancient practices that were being done. It's like they were onto something, and now we're starting to see data that really confirms a lot of traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, old naturopathic therapies, hydrotherapies. Now, that was started in Austria. And it's been around for so long, but now it's really like in our world, people are jumping in tubs, taking cold showers, but that contrast hydrotherapy has been around and it's amazing. But oil pulling has been something, I mean, I haven't had, I had tons of cavities as a kid, but I haven't had one in many, many years since I've been doing it. And all I do is just either take some sesame oil or coconut oil, swish it around. Ayurvedic says 20 minutes. That's way too long for me. So I do it for like 5 and I call it a day. Make sure you never spit the coconut oil or the sesame oil into the sink because it can clog it. So I just put it into the garbage can. But it's a easy practice, part of my morning. So usually I'm swishing and then I go outside and ground, for those 5 minutes. So you become efficient with your rituals at some point.
Yeah. Just like combining them. That's amazing. Yeah, it's like finding a way to de-stress and to de-stress regularly is so important. Do you have any tips for people that live in, more urban environments? I mean, because we're lucky we live in LA, the nature is never really that far from reach for us. Yeah, when I was in New York, I was staying in Williamsburg, and I sort of started losing my way with my rituals, which are basically non-negotiables for me. But I had to find the nearest park, and thank God, in New York, you can find a park near you within, I don't know, depending on where you live, but within walking distance, a few blocks. I think making a morning walk as part of your ritual, and then getting to the grass and then grounding that's what I was doing every morning. I was walking 10 minutes and getting into the grass and grounding. The grounding mats, and this is this is the grounding part of the whole ritual part, but the grounding mats, I don't know how well they work. I know the studies showed that the ones that are conductive to outside, that are basically plugged in outside to the ground, are the ones that work better than the ones on just being into an outlet. But I don't know yet. I have to research those more. But getting outside, walking around New York, doing a morning ritual, morning walk, doing breath work, you can do your gratitudes while you're walking, do your affirmations while you're walking. Get to the park, journal a little bit, ground, call it a morning. That takes less than an hour. Yeah. That's my urban solution. I love that. That's important because I grew up in New York City and I would do what I could, for the years that I was living in New York. But I know that there's a lot of people out there that don't have access to dirt, which is
such a different mindset, man. When I came here, I was like, holy shit. I'm like, everyone is like into health. And it's interesting, when I went back, I got to the airport and I saw so many people as like unhealthy. Like it was, I took advantage by how many people out here are so in shape and so vibrant and eating so well. Maybe I go to Air One too much, but every time I see, and then I go there, I was like, holy shit, like you can see diabetes, you can see hypertension. And it's wild that 2 different coasts can have 2 different approaches to health and wellness. But if we can do our jobs, like what we're doing, is spreading that through mediums like we have, it's pretty incredible that, people in New York, in the middle of New York, are like, look, my whole family eats like crap, or in the South, my whole family eats like crap. But now I know some things that I can do, maybe teach them.
Yeah. I mean, the obesity crisis is just, it's like overwhelming. It's overwhelming the healthcare system to the degree that, by the year 2030, 1 in 2 people are going to be obese, which is, this is not just like overweight. This is like, obesity, like clinical obesity.
Yeah. And we see, and look, us with the whole pandemic, man, it's like obesity being one of the top comorbidities that we see with infection from COVID. And we wonder why America has been hit so hard. We're so obese, we are not in shape. We're not healthy. We have imbalanced blood sugar, right? Pre-diabetic states, inflammation. This is the common American, and it's wild to even think that. But now we see the consequences of this was, if anything, showed us more than this year. I don't know. I can't name something.
Yeah. I mean, it takes definitely it takes a lot of effort to really swim upstream today. You feel like you're swimming upstream by engaging in these healthy lifestyle practices and making an effort to not be, overweight or obese. I'm surrounded by, I get sent, and I'm sure you do too, like all kinds of like snack foods and products and things like that. And like, it's great to indulge. Like, it's a very human thing to want to indulge. But if I haven't trained myself to be able to like pump the brakes, I would be at least 50 pounds heavier. Like, I love to snack and I love sweet foods and, but it's like, I have my health goals as my ultimate priority in life.
Yeah. And it's the access, right? Like, when I went back to Queens, I was reminded that like the supermarkets there don't carry, high quality food, organic food. It's really hard to get our hands on that. And, my cousins will go to the corner store, and that's where they get their food. And that's macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets and, Jiffy peanut butter. So that's a deeper conversation, social. But again, for us, like, we can teach people some tips and interventions that they can make to better their health, regardless of where they are.
I totally agree. No matter where you are, no matter who you are, I guarantee you that there are, if you, Dr. G, or I were to look at your life, I'm sure that there are low-hanging fruit that are not being tended to. Simple adjustments, whether it's like drinking a little bit more water here and there, or going for that walk. I mean, or getting more sunlight. The sun is free.
It's free, right? And it's so powerful. It's so powerful, and it helps regulate our sleep rhythm. Light exposure. I had on my show Matt Maruca, he was the founder of Raw Optics, those blue blockers, and he was incredible because he elucidated the importance of being exposed to light in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night, and what that does for our, not only just our brain rhythms, but our whole body, all our cellular rhythms. They run on these clocks. And going outside uninterrupted, I mean, I wear contacts, so now I'm going outside, like, I'm basically blind. So I'm going outside with, like, making sure I'm not bumping into rocks and stuff, but uninterrupted, no contacts, no glasses, and letting the sun hit your eyes in the morning. I try to take them off at night and see the sunset too, but the wavelength that you're getting, the different color spectrum, is basically little instruction packets that you're getting into your body, and your body's going, oh, okay, now I know where we are in the day. Now I know what processes to start and which ones to pump the brakes on. That's powerful stuff, literally just by being the stimulus of light, going outside. So this is what I tell people now. I go, in the morning, get some light, get some sun, whatever you can. In the afternoon, if you're working, on your lunch break, go outside. Even if it's cold outside, just see. It can be a cloudy day. And then at night, try to catch the sunset. That's what I've been trying to do every day. It's a little hard, but, catching the sunset. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing stuff.
Amazing stuff. Super important. So we're halfway through. We're halfway through the 4 pillars.
I expanded them for a reason because...
How many are there? Not 4?
No, there's not 4. There's, I think, probably 10, 11. But
oh, really?
But we went over most of them already. I'm not going to go over nutrition because I know you talk about it all the time. Just the importance of variety of fruits and vegetables, different colors. The colors are so important. Fiber, all the stuff that you talk about, I'm 100% aligned with. I love that. The fasting part is really important on the nutrition. So knowing how powerful that is for longevity, for inflammation, for blood sugar, so important. And that ties into the other part of the pillar of inflammation and basically metabolic health. And I think that was a huge driver for infections for COVID, because we're all so not we all, but Americans as a whole are metabolically really unhealthy, and the exposure. Not all of us just get infections. Not all of us just get diseases. It's always the climate. What is the terrain basically, and an inflammatory terrain with imbalanced blood sugar is like prime for anything. And I think that by virtue of the way we eat, the way our lifestyle, lack of exercise, which is another pillar, lack of exercise, it creates that for us. Insulin itself elevated insulin over time is a super strong carcinogenic hormone, right? Prostate cancer, breast cancer, every patient that came to my clinic, I was checking their insulin who had prostate cancer and breast cancer, among other cancers, but that's what I saw most of. If you have cancer, you have to check your insulin status, make sure your insulin's not out of control. And metabolic health and inflammation is so important when it comes to our overall health. And that, like I said, is a function of lifestyle and diet and easy stuff, right? Like go on Max's Instagram and learn about dietary stuff. It's so easy that we can make, right? Like just small changes. We don't have to spend $100 more in the supermarket, just small changes, right?
Yeah. And I know that environmental toxicity is a huge topic of interest for you. And what's so, fascinating about that, topic is that even outside of the realm of nutrition, exposures to various industrial chemicals can actually have a negative impact on your metabolic health as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Which is another pillar. I feel like I got pillars coming out left and right, every back pocket. But environmental, and I'm glad you spoke about this because I'm so passionate about environmental health. The reason I became passionate about it is because when I came out of school, I was in an integrative oncology hospital. And when you're working in a hospital, you kind of got your hands cuffed. You can't, we were working nutritionists, so I couldn't make any nutritional recommendations. So all we were doing was making these interventions to help people get through chemo, help people get through radiation, which was wonderful because it really helped. When I got out of school, I sort of saw cancer a little differently. And I said, well, what the heck is going on? Because it's like what we see in cancer care is you take a picture, you get treatment, then you take a picture in time and it shows no cancer. And then we go, you're cancer free, go back to your lifestyle, eat the way you did. There's no other like go home intervention or recommendations. It's not, there's something missing. And, we have a field full of weeds and we burn it with, radiation, or we throw chemicals at it with chemotherapy, or we mow it with surgery. And that's great because we take the picture and there's no weeds, but then we never change the soil ever. So I started saying, like, what are the drivers of cancer? We know the nutritional stuff. There's absolutely a mental, emotional component, chronic stress, the genetic component. And I started building on it. And then I go, why isn't anyone ever talking about environmental toxins or environmental exposures over time? We know occupationally, when you're exposed to it at high doses, sure, yeah, you can see cancers arise. But what about low dose over time? Because there's a lot of chemicals out there that are known carcinogens. They cause cancer. We know it. There's no arguing it. There's other ones that might absolutely do disrupt hormones. And because I worked a lot with breast cancer, I started diving in a lot more into BPA. And I learned not only is it a xenoestrogen, it mimics estrogen in the body. The body goes, oh, well, more estrogen. It binds to those receptors, starts creating a cascade in the cell. And then the cell basically is expressing like it's estrogen. And it's also blocking normal receptors like thyroid or androgen for us guys who want to pump up our testosterone, BPA, which is found in plastics, all the BPA analogs also like BPA free, quote unquote, that's in plastics, receipts, all plastic, basically everything that we're
everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. And it's in our water too. But I learned that it's not only at high doses that it's creating this effect. And you came on my show, you actually spoke about the non-monotonic dose response. It's not only at high doses, but it's at doses that are lower than FDA or EPA approved safe limits. So now at low doses, we're starting to see BPA exert the same effects on humans. It's pretty wild to understand that. And how ubiquitous is BPA? The CDC did a study and there was 2,700 people, 93% of them had BPA in their urine. And this is wild because BPA is metabolized in 6 hours, or the half-life. So you're getting half of it out, 6 hours, gone. That means these folks were exposed to BPA within a day.
Yeah.
And BPA is known to be inflammatory, disrupt your genes, be connected to breast cancer, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer. So why is no one talking about something that we're being exposed to every single day? Like I was drinking, up to that point, I was drinking water bottles. That day I stopped. I never drank from a water bottle again. Wow. Unless I'm like at the airport or something,
Yes, same.
So it's pretty wild. Environmental toxins and exposures. And it's not just that. It's like, it started opening up the picture for like, well, what are you putting on your skin, right? What are you breathing in your home? And what that's doing to the body. So as a whole, without instilling fear, but more empowerment, teaching people how to make subtle or slow changes over time to better their air quality at home, or what they're putting on their skin, or what they're putting in their mouth with pesticides, herbicides, insecticides. So it's pretty incredible stuff when you look at environmental medicine and our relationship to it. It's not just cancer. It's almost every single disease is connected to these disruptions of environmental toxins.
Yeah, and circling back to metabolic health, I mean, BPA affects your insulin response.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And that's like, when you go and get your metabolic health sort of assessed, when they look at all the markers that a physician would use to diagnose, say, metabolic syndrome, fasting blood sugar, insulin, like those are among those metrics that are looked at.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be literally the causative agent behind that's pushing that, because there's folks who eat really healthy. This is where investigation comes in our field. There's folks who eat really healthy, but what are you being exposed to every single day? For me, I was like, whoa, like, is that a piece that's missing in cancer care? And then that opens a door for like things like heavy metals, right? And then this is why last year I did so many investigations on cacao powders and protein powders and chocolates, cadmium and lead, things that are not only connected to cognitive issues for children, but also different cancers over time. Like heavy metals accumulate, right? BPA, you pee out. Heavy metals accumulate in the body, in the brain, in the bone, in the tissue, in the fat. So then that's when I became passionate about heavy metals. So it started like creating this cascade where I'm like, how can we do better in health, and how can we educate people more? So I think there's a need for more environmental education, but I'm doing some stuff.
Yeah. I want to know what you learned about chocolate, but also, like, how do you not, so knowing what you know, how do you then not drive yourself crazy, right?
Yeah. So I always preface when I talk about environmental medicine that we have these sophisticated detox systems, right? Liver, we get to pee, we get to poop, we get to breathe stuff out, we get to sweat stuff out. Kidney. So amongst all of that, we are built to handle this stuff. We're inundated, and we can become overwhelmed. There's folks out there genetically who can't detoxify as good as other folks. That's the bottom line. And the analogy I always give is that we have this cup, and the cup is filling up over time with all these exposures, all this crap. Now your cup may be really big because you are genetically just made that way. And my cup may be, a pretty normal sized cup, whereas someone else we know can have really tiny, like shot glass. Once that cup overflows with these exposures, then we start manifesting disease, right? It could be skin disease, brain disease. And this ties in again with stress, because the genetics determine the size of the cup, but stress can also shrink that cup. So that's why stress is so important too. But you don't drive yourself crazy because you understand the body can detox, and you understand that little interventions go a very long way. Right? Let me just change my toothpaste. Let me just get a better quality toothpaste because I'm putting this stuff in my mouth every single day. Well, I'm washing with this really crappy Old Spice soap. That's a problem, So it just, because what's happening is you're getting small exposures over time. It's not like you're getting a major occupational exposure. It's building up over time, right? There's an additive effect, synergistic effect. These toxins work together. So that's what I tell people. How do we get an air purifier? You can't afford one? Then, invest, save some money over time, and start with this one right here, right now, and easy interventions, learning about what does organic food mean, what can we do, and what does that intervention mean as a whole. That's how you don't drive yourself crazy.
Yeah. Do you ever get like pushback from people on social media? In sort of and I'm using air quotes, if you're listening to this, like the evidence-based community, I just know that there's some out there that are like, well, everything, yes, it's true, everything's a chemical, but they'll use that as a sort of way to diminish efforts to reduce exposures to these, what we know are basically toxic chemicals.
Yeah.
There's still questions that loom, of course. Like, I don't think you or I are pretending to have all the answers, but I think the precautionary principle is really what this is all about. It's taking a sort of guilty until proven innocent approach.
Yeah.
But I do find that sometimes on social media that there are like apologists for BPA and for parabens in our cosmetics, and just any number of these kinds of exposures. Do you ever see that?
Yeah, I see it a lot. I think it's bullshit, to be honest. Like, I think that we know what these do. We know that they have an additive effect. We know that I just said that non-monotonic dose response at low levels can affect us. So why not learn about it now and just make those interventions to avoid that? I remember there was this, I know what you're talking about, because a few years ago, there was this one guy who said something along those lines. And I didn't know about you. And I saw it on Instagram. Someone tagged me and I read the comments and I saw you had a comment like calling this person out. This was years ago.
Me?
Yeah, you. And I was like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. Like
I was calling somebody.
Yeah. Like you just commented like, this is ridiculous.
Yes.
Like, you know, this was maybe 2-3 years ago.
Was it about like organic food or something?
Maybe. It was, I think it was a guy out in the UK.
Got it.
But I was like,
okay,
all right,
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
We're not going to name him.
We're not going to name, but I saw that and I was like, okay, good. Like this type of information creates what people believe is a safe space, and it makes people lazy. It does. They're like, we're not empowered anymore. We're just like, everything's a chemical. I can eat it. But if we understand that we can make those interventions and which ones to make and why, then you're creating a massive change in your health by small. That's what I'm saying. Small steps. So
also, like, industry and market demand do not have your best interests in mind.
Yeah.
They don't. You could say to yourself, well, we'll let the market like decide, right? We'll let like regulators decide. But then what happens is you have like a chain like KFC coming out with like a fried chicken sandwich on a donut bun,
Yeah.
Like that's what the market is. That's what the people want. And so that's what the market is then going to cater to. And it gives no regard to like the downstream consequences of that.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies to these industrial chemicals that are unleashed onto the market. Oftentimes, after millions of people have become exposed, do we then see the repercussions of that? There was a great documentary that I just watched where it was talking about talc powder and Johnson & Johnson and that whole scandal. Talc was giving, like, women put it on their privates, right? And it gives them, I forget what kind of...
I think the lady had uterine cancer.
Yeah.
Or cervical cancer, one of the two.
Yeah, just like so infuriating.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's that passion I felt when I started learning about industry and how... So I did a whole show on how the industry sends chemicals to the public. And it's sort of like the FDA. There's so many submissions for chemicals that the FDA is overwhelmed, but the process to get a chemical into our environment is literally walking to a club past a blind bouncer, basically. Yeah. That's how it is. There's like 3 blind bouncers and 1 who has vision, but that guy checks his phone all the time. So it's like he may look up, but probably not. And it's wild because that is literally the best analogy I can give to the allowance of chemicals into our environment, of which we have no safety testing, right? Yeah. And we are the lab rats, what I say, right? It's put in here, and then we see the rise in cancers, we see the rise in chronic diseases, right? And you just mentioned how it affects our metabolic health. I think it's a culprit that is massive behind the scenes. It's behind a black curtain and no one's talking about it enough. But I do think, because I've seen people exercise, eat the best food, and work on stress, and it's a big part of it until they start taking out all the crap from their lives. And we can. Environmental Working Group is an awesome resource for that. They have a Skin Deep database where you can actually look up makeup or lotion or shampoo, conditioner, soaps. You can see on a rating scale where yours rates if it's in the system. And on top of that, you can just see better ones and you can order those instead and pay a little bit more. Or cleaning supplies. They have a whole cleaning supply database. Bleach, like everyone has been disinfecting their home in this time. But I spoke about bleach, and like that not only irritates mucosa, right, for children and adults alike, but it's also an asthmagen. So it creates asthma. Like if your child didn't have asthma and it has asthma, it might be because of the bleach. It absolutely exacerbates it. But when I talk about air quality, something like bleach or even the really crappy conventional cleaning supplies, they measured it outside of the house. It'll be about 100 parts per trillion, the concentration. But inside, it'll be 100 parts per billion, which is 100,000 times more concentration of chemicals you're getting in the house. And that's cleaning supplies. So imagine, especially all of us are disinfecting everything. is what I talk about. Do something as simple as getting a nice air purifier. I speak about a lot of different brands, but you can get a really cheap one. Opening your windows, letting the air flow. So important of an intervention. But yeah, you can go to environmental working group and then look at cleaning supplies basically, or do it yourself. Castile soap, cleaning vinegar, hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, thyme. Thyme oil is really important disinfectant because it has a constituent thymol, which actually has been shown or EPA approved against COVID. So
wow.
You can use that too. Make your own, do it yourself. Very easy.
Love that. Man, so cool. So cool. You didn't mention this, but don't you also have like a personal connection to cancer?
Yes. My mom died of breast cancer when I was in my first year of naturopathic school. So
wow.
I mentioned I went to dental school. She was diagnosed in the end of my first year. So it sort of changed things around. And the synchronicity behind it was that she was going through chemotherapy. And in that time when I went to return back to school, it was in Minnesota. So I was in the Midwest. And she gave me this book to read. And it was some sort of diet or some health book, but it said ND on it. And I'm like, how can they make such a mistake to put ND instead of MD? So when I read the insert and the caption, it said naturopathic medicine. What the hell is naturopathic medicine? So when I got home and like at 11 at night, I went on Google and I started researching naturopathic medicine, and I got a wave of intuition that said like a buzzing. It's like I took 3 shots of tequila. I got buzzed in a second.
Wow.
And it's my body, my soul telling me, get out. This is your calling. So, within 2 months I was out, and then I went. But within that first year of naturopathic medical school, she passed away right around finals week. But since then, it's been that whole catalyst to really tackle cancer for a long time, learn about environmental medicine, and just literally be like the fire. Like it's something that you and I have in common. We have a fire with us because we have personal connections to health and personal like agendas of what we want to create in this world. Yeah, so it's pretty powerful stuff, especially when you have a loved one pass away.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you like, I don't think that there are many people in the wellness world, and I certainly don't think that there are many in the fitness community online that really like know what like sickness is.
Yeah,
it's a horrible thing. I mean, it's a tragedy, but it's also a privilege in many ways, because it really shows you, I think in the most profound way possible, like what the most meaningful stuff of life is, and it really kind of, I mean, having that as a compass, having like experienced that, there's really nothing, there's no greater a motivating force.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm there with you. Like seeing how sick is, you're like, holy shit. Like I need to, one, really, really value what health is within myself, and then try to radiate and spread that to others, and teach them. Because we don't know like how nasty, like, Alzheimer's can be, dementia, cancer. Like for folks who've seen people who've died of cancer, the shit is nasty. People wear away and they die. So how can we teach people to prevent that, or how can we have increased quality of life within those folks? So I think you're doing a great job with it.
Likewise. So we have
2 more really important ones.
Okay.
These are my favorite ones because in my opinion, I think they are the most important ones. I do. 2, sense of purpose and community. Sense of purpose is so important to have in our life. Folks who have sense of purpose have better behaviors, right? The folks who have sense of purpose have reduced sleep disturbance, reduced stroke incidence, increased better post-stroke quality of life, reduced diabetes. We see folks with better sense of purpose, reduced expression of pro-inflammatory genes.
Wow.
Therefore, reduced inflammation, reduced cortisol. Sense of purpose is everything, because how many of us live without a sense of purpose, or being at a job where we're like, how the hell did I get here? Why did I even get that degree? And what am I creating in this world? I think that our capacity for impact and our potential is much greater than any of us realize, but many of us aren't living up to it. And there's nothing like radiating health. Health comes when you're really expressing your true service to humanity. And I see that so much in like our community. Like I'll meet someone who's doing something completely different than me, but aligned with their sense of purpose, and they're radiating and sharing those gifts with each other. And, you know, like this is the whole mental, emotional, spiritual part, but the power of sense of purpose can't be understated. Tied to that is community, man. I just mentioned community. Community for me, I think, is the most important health pillar of all. We are tribal. We are meant to be in community. We are meant to feel wanted. Over the past 10 years, there's been a threefold increase of people who don't feel like they have social connection. But community is amazing, and here's why. Lack of social connection is a greater detriment to health than obesity, lack of physical exercise, blood lipids, smoking, and increased blood pressure. In other words, your doctor should be asking you immediately what your sense of community is. Do you have connection? Do you feel like you're part of something? Even before they ask you how often are you exercising, even before they ask you, are you smoking still? Well, let's check your blood pressure. Like that's pretty incredible that community can make that important of a change in our health. And a lot of us don't have it.
Especially now, right?
Of course, especially now. And the isolation is it's more apparent than ever. But when you feel, and I don't care what the community is, ours just tends to be health and wellness, but if it's basket weaving, then get into a basket weaving community. And if there's no one in your town, get into a Facebook group, get into a meetup group, create your own. But find your passion, your sense of purpose, create into the world, but then create a community around it, right? And that community is going to be one of your number one important factors for your own health as well as each other's health.
And does your community necessarily have to be like, you know, motivated by health, you know, into nutrition, or is it literally just the fact that you're sort of having this shared experience with another person?
Yeah, the shared experience. Like it can be the basket weaving community.
Wow.
The theory is that it reduces stress greatly because you always have someone who has something in common with you.
Wow.
We had this is very interesting. I just had James Maskell on my show.
Oh, I love that guy.
He's incredible, right? He calls himself like a health rogue economist, a rogue health economist. But what he's really pushing is group visits at the doctors or at the hospitals. And what he was saying is that in these group visits, let's say at the, I think it was the Cleveland Clinic, before they even see the functional doctor, they have maybe 5 or 6 weeks of community visits with either the nurse practitioner or the PA, where they learn all of the bases of health. What they saw is by the time they're ready to see the doctor, 50% of them were already better.
Wow.
They didn't even need to see the doctor, 50%. And that's the sense of community because they feel that they all have something in common, right? There's a sublime piece to medicine where community, with a lack of community, you don't show up the way that you would with a doctor. Like I couldn't get everything out of everyone. People lie to doctors. They're eating healthy as hell, right? But then I'm looking at their cholesterol, I'm looking at their triglycerides. I'm like, it doesn't look like you're eating that healthy actually. But in the sense of community, there's a lot more, people are a lot more open, people are a lot more forthcoming. So when it comes to health, I think that even the model of health for more community, more group visits could be really powerful. So that's why I talk about community so much. We have a great one in our health and wellness one. We always have, I feel very supported, and rooted for, as we all should. But again, find your community and see where you can have access to people with like minds, with a like sense of purpose.
Couldn't agree more. So important. I love that.
I think that was all the pillars.
That was all the pillars?
We didn't even go in order. We just tied them in. It was beautiful.
It's like a beautiful tapestry.
A tapestry.
A tapestry of ideas.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we absolutely did that. Exercise is the last one, but we know about exercise. Just start moving 5 times a week.
How do you exercise?
Depends. So I used to have a trainer. I was working out. Man, I was feeling so ripped before COVID, and COVID came and I went to dad bod mode really fast. But I bought some weights. I bought a pull-up bar, ab machine and whatnot. And, but that's not just it. It's movement, basically. Like, am I doing yoga? Some days I'm like planning to work out, but then I played Frisbee for an hour and I was sweating like crazy. Do like for me, it's like, am I moving the blood, but also doing weight resistance too? Weight resistance is very, like aerobic, anaerobic, the combination is very important, especially for preventing cancer.
Yeah. I try to just stay as active as I can. Like, I mean, I try to do exercises as much as I can. I try to, I love resistance training. And so I try to do push-ups, every other day. I'll do like some jump squats and things like that. But I find for me, it's just like, especially these days, I'm so frequently in close proximity to my kitchen, and I hang out with my family, and, there's always like, everybody's always like snacking in my house, So it's like literally for me to prevent myself from becoming overweight, like one of the keys is, one key is like, having just a little bit of restraint and like opting for foods that I know are going to be satiating, which is seldom the case for junk foods, but you do the best you can. But then it's staying active. It's just like, it's like walking. I'll walk to the grocery store if I need one thing.
That's a great move.
Yeah, because it's just like, it's getting me out of the freaking house. It's getting me walking. I'm like putting those steps in. Yeah,
that's a great move. Some of my clients, I say, look, like use the stairs at work. When they were all going into work, like I had my guy using the stairs all the time. Small interventions. The movement really is helpful. And like you said, going to see, I don't even keep anything in my house that I know, because I know that I remember like I forgot what snacks there were. I was like, all right, there's like a box of like 10. I'm going to finish it over the week. I finished it in 2 days. Like, if it's there, that's it. I have like no self-control. So I actually just you open my fridge, it's just like Swiss chard and like almond butter.
Dude, it's like my friend Crosby bakes these cookies, like these sugar-free keto, approved cookies. I'll buy like, 4 or 5 or 6 of them. I'm eating however many I buy that night.
Do you see that's the problem? But maybe you have more incentive to just walk to the supermarket, buy one at a time. So, but smart. Those are the pillars for me. It's like, if you notice, all of these things are cheap. All of these things are accessible. All the things we can do without a problem, just weaving them, mosaicing them into our day. Like that's all we have to do. And it'll make massive changes long-term.
Dude, I love that. I love talking to you. This was so fun. Awesome, I feel like you dropped a lot of incredible knowledge. Thanks for being here. I just got one last question for you before we wrap up. But before we get to that, how can listeners find you on social media?
Okay, it's at doctor.g with an underscore at the end. I don't have a website. I should get one day soon, but I feel like social media is fine. I wanted to mention I'm a co-founder of a wellness platform that is just launching. It's called the Swell Score, theswellscore.com. And this is an evidence-based wellness platform, which is curated by doctors, nutritionists, scientists we have on staff. And basically what we're doing is we're creating a clarity behind the confusion that isn't health and wellness. Like you get so many mixed messages, a lot, like we were just talking about, different Instagram accounts saying these crazy stuff, but also we've created this marketplace where people can access the best of the best. So I'll get a DM, I'm sure you get DMs like, hey, what's the best magnesium? What's the best cacao powder? What's the best protein powder? What's the best rhodiola? We have only the best on there and nothing else. On top of that, we have an online community. We'll have courses. It's going to expand to health coaching even.
Wow.
But for folks who do sign up, they get 20 to 50% off right now with a membership. So, and it's expanding. We're adding more supplements, and it's all doctor grade professional brand supplements. You're not going to find the stuff at Vitamin Shop. You're not going to find it at GNC. You're not even going to find it at Whole Foods. We're talking about high grade, the best of the best.
I love that. What was the URL again?
Theswellscore.com.
The Swell Score. And you also have an incredible podcast, right? Heal Thyself.
Yes, Heal Thyself. Amazing podcast. We've been doing it for about 1.5 years. And we've had incredible people on, including yourself. I would try to get the best minds around in health and wellness and everything else. So we cover all the topics, not just like gut health and nutrition, but we just had like a sex therapist come on and just blow my mind away with crazy stuff. So it's everything involved in health. So check it out, everyone.
I love that. I just had a cat expert on my podcast.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just,
People love cats.
people love cats.
I saw cat food downstairs. You have a cat.
I have a cat. I have a cat.
People love cats.
Shout out to Delilah. All right. The last question that I get to ask everybody on the show, Dr. G, what does it mean to you to live a genius life? What does living a genius life mean to you?
Living a genius life means expressing your sense of purpose and utilizing your genius that you've been gifted with to better humanity, raise consciousness, create health and wellness. It's that through that capacity and realizing your potential. That's what genius life means to me.
It's beautiful. I love it.
All right.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for being here.
All right, brother.
This was awesome. To all you guys out there in podcast land, thank you so much for tuning in. Text me to let me know what you thought about this episode of the show, 310-299-9401, and I will catch you next time. Peace.